And welcome into the Thursday edition, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Over the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Robby Stanley alongside Ian Safar here with you on this Thursday morning. Joe Rexrode will be along shortly here on the program, and we will catch up with Joe here in just a few minutes. We got a lot going on the program here today. We have John McClain coming up at 7 o'clock. We'll get his thoughts on the Texans and all things AFC South as we continue our tour through the AFC South. So looking forward to have John McClain coming up at 7 o'clock. And our weekly visit with Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports will be at 8 o'clock. So we'll get into the Titans and all things NFL with Charles a little bit later in the program at 8 o'clock as well. But we'll have the best and worst things in sports coming up later this hour at 6:45, and the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode coming up at 7:45 a little bit later in the program. So lots going on today on the program. As always, we'll take your thoughts in the meantime. 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. Well, we have talked a lot this week about the Nashville Predators and about what could be done this offseason to try and get them back to a place where they are competitive next year, and exactly how much roster turnover could we see this offseason. Well, I mentioned yesterday that now that the Cup final was over, you could probably start seeing a lot of moves over the next week and a half here. And here we go. The Predators were among several teams that made some moves yesterday, and they bring in Erik Haula, who, of course, played for the Predators back during the COVID year. So the shortened season, he played 51 games for the Predators in 2020/2021. He had 9 goals, 12 assists, 21 points in that year for Nashville. Last year, Erik Haula played for the Devils. He also had 21 points, 11 goals, 10 assists, and 69 games for New Jersey. So the Predators acquire Erik Haula. They send to New Jersey defenseman Jeremy Hansel, who is a prospect that they got that was not a highly rated prospect, but we'll see what he ends up turning out to be, and a 4th-round pick in the 2025 NHL draft. So, Ian, let me say a couple things about this.
Yep.
Number one, the price that they gave up to get Erik Haula back in here doesn't really bother me all that much. Like,
no.
I'm not saying
right?
Yeah, like I'm not saying you can't find good players that have come out of the 4th round. The Predators have some good players that came out of the 4th round. So it's not a meaningless pick or anything like that. But I'm not overly bothered by Jeremy Hansel and the 4th-round pick going back the other way. I also do my best this time of year, and I'm not always good at this, but I do my best this time of year to try to wait a little bit before I've got a full reaction to everything, just because there's so much that's going to happen, not only just with the Predators, but throughout the league over the next few weeks here with the draft and trades and NHL free agency coming up, that until you see the entire picture kind of put together here, it's hard to really judge immediately what you see.
For sure.
I will say on the surface here, Ian, I don't really understand this. And here's why. Now, I saw the statement that Barry Trotz put out in the press release when they made this move yesterday. And I'll just read it real quick. He talked about, quote, he brings great flexibility to our roster with the ability to play up and down the lineup in a variety of different roles. We're confident that he'll be able to play alongside our young players, helping to accelerate their development. So I understand that idea. And like, I think Erik Haula has been throughout his career a fine bottom 6 player for the most part. Now, he did have 1 year in Vegas where he just went crazy and he scored, like, he had 29 goals. He had 55 points that year. So, but other than that, like, he's basically been kind of a good 3rd-line guy. He's 34 now. The numbers kind of dipped a little bit last year from him. So what are we going to see from Erik Haula right now? I don't know. On the surface, Ian, it says to me, okay, good. Here's another 34-year-old that you can add to the lineup on a lineup that's already got their fair share of 33, 34, 35-year-olds.
And I guess he's going to take the spot of a young person, a younger player again, you know. So I guess. I mean, you assume he's going to play every game. or at least be in the lineup most nights. So I don't know who that kind of knocks out.
Yeah.
Towards the end there, they were dealing with a bunch of injuries and they had some players in the lineup they probably didn't really want to necessarily have to put in there. So maybe it's just an added depth piece. But didn't they say this a lot about Marchessault and Stamkos about, helping the young guys along and that kind of stuff. And maybe it works more with Haula since he's, more of like a role type player and you're not expecting him to put up a bunch of points. So maybe he can embrace that role a little bit more, but we'll see. We'll see how he fits the system.
Yeah. I just look at it and I think to myself, do they not already have a lot of guys in the mold of Eric Haula? And is there not some young guys they have that could turn into Eric Haula? That's kind of the way that I view it. Now, again, I would urge people to just keep an open mind for the next few weeks here because, look, we could see, I say they're bringing in another 34-year-old. They may be shipping a couple out for all I know. We'll see what happens over the next couple of weeks here. Is Jonathan Marchessault still going to be a part of the team in 3 weeks? I think so, but I don't know. Could there be some other moves coming? You always have to leave kind of the room for that to materialize this time of year in the NHL. So I understand that, but I'm with you on that first part. I would rather see that type of spot be taken up by a young guy. Now you can't. There are some fans and some people that take it too far the other way, where they just want to see them go straight young and just have nothing but young guys out there. And very rarely is that a good idea. That typically is not a good way to go about this. So I don't hate the idea of having veteran players play alongside younger players, and maybe that does accelerate their growth. I don't know that Eric Haula would be the one that I would have targeted in that situation. And again, he's been a fine player over the course of his career, but he's 34 and some of the numbers are starting to go the other way. So I'm really interested to see where he slots in and where he plays with. I know a lot of people yesterday when the move was made, they immediately thought of, well, he's probably going to play with Fedor Svechkov, and maybe we'll see kind of what happens there. But
third line,
Eric Haula can play center. He can play on the wing. So there's some versatility
probably
that he brings to it. I would say this, Eric Haula does not ever need to be in the top six. I saw some people talking about that yesterday if you need him to, you can play in the top six. If you're needing Eric Haula next year at any point to play in your top six, that means things probably aren't going very well for you, would be my guess.
Yeah. And I guess, Hansel, pardon me there. Hansel was let's see, they acquired him in the package for Yakov Trenin.
Yep.
So, I guess if you kind of do the math on that, Trenin and Hansel comes back. What were you really expecting from him? I guess you're going to lose Trenin anyways.
Yeah.
So I guess it's no big deal. And a 4th-round pick. They got plenty of picks. I do wonder what the whole New Jersey Tom Fitzgerald dynamic was on this. Not that it's let's just make a deal to make a deal because we're friends. But I don't know. Maybe they had been talking.
Now, Haula's got, I think, 1 year left on his deal. So he could also, I did think about this yesterday, if the Predators are out of it by the time the trade deadline comes around,
just move him for a pick.
He is a guy that you could probably move for a pick. Now, I don't think you're moving him for
We'll get your 4th back, maybe.
You might get your 4th back. That's kind of in the range of where I think it could be. So from that standpoint, again, there's not a lot of risk to it, and there's not, I'm not overly upset with the price that they've given to do this. It's more just about
what does that mean about the direction of
what direction? All those things. What direction are they going here with all of this? Now, there's still a lot to figure out here. Is there a bigger trade that they can pull off at some point? Do they at all get involved in the offer sheet part of this? Which I could tell you, as of last year, a couple years ago, when I asked Barry Trotz about this, he never really sounded overly excited about the idea of offer sheets. So we'll see what happens on that front. And then, of course, they are picking at number 5 this year. So, depending on who that is whoever they pick at number 5 a legitimate option to play for them next year? I don't know what the answer to that is. There's a lot of mock drafts right now that have the Predators ending up with James Higgins And my guess is if Higgins is the pick, he's probably going back to college next year. So maybe he could come play for you at the end of his college season. But I don't think it's not a guarantee that he's going back, but I would be surprised if Higgins, based on some of the reporting around it, doesn't go back to college. So
yeah, fifth is pretty high, but I'm not sure we should expect an impact next year.
If I had to guess right now, my guess would be that whoever they take at number 5 is not playing for them next year.
Yeah.
So I think some people are just assuming that they will be, and that's going to be the case. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I don't think that I would bet on that right now.
No, me either.
So you have to factor all that in when it comes to what they're doing with their roster and what they're trying to build. But the Predators, the offseason, I guess, has now officially begun with a move being made.
Busy. Trade.
They bring in Eric Haula.
Draft coming up.
Draft is coming up a week from Friday. And we're going to see, we heard Sean Rourke on with us the other day, and there's been a lot of chatter about this. The expectation is we could see a lot of moves over the next week and a half here in the NHL. So we'll see how much more the Predators could be involved with that. We'll take your thoughts on the Predators bringing in Eric Haula, 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Taking your thoughts on the Predators, 615-737-1025. The offseason has been kicked off. Eric Haula back in exchange for a fourth-round pick and Jeremy Hansel. We welcome Joe Rexrode in the program. Joseph, good morning. Your thoughts on the Predators bringing Eric Haula back into the fold yesterday?
I'm so mad that I missed the first segment to not be able to react immediately to the big breaking news. And I apologize on behalf of my son, who I said, hey, got to get to the airport in time for me to make the show. So you got to get up, you got to show, you got to go fat, you know. But anyway.
Didn't quite work.
Didn't quite work out. Was a little bit late. Now Ian is apparently – do you want to put the camera on my gout foot that now is inches away from Robby's head that I'm elevating? Yeah. Can we get the gout foot its own camera? Like it'll be Kaharski today.
Is gout contagious?
Gout is not contagious,
okay,
and my foot is clean, and it's covered by a sock, so you don't have to see the big red knot of gout and uric acid condensed in my foot.
That's good.
Hi, listener.
Good mental thought,
Yeah, the Eric, but really, seriously, the Eric Haula thing. I think you put it well in the first segment. It's like, you don't know the full picture, so some people may be out that we don't know. Or, does Barry Trotz know the full picture? Probably not either, because you don't know exactly what's going to happen if you're going to be able to sign this person, if you're able to make this or that trade. But yeah, the first reaction is, huh? I mean, that was my first reaction. My first reaction was, how about P.A. Parento, Vern Fiddler? Hey, you know who could really skate back in the day? How about some Mika Salamaki, huh? That guy flying around the ice.
Lavi loved that guy. He sure did.
I liked him too. I was like, that dude just hits people like a missile. I liked Haula when he was here, but again, the cost is whatever.
Yeah.
That's fine.
It's about the roster
The
construction.
benefit is, and the vision is what I'm curious about. And like you guys said, I mean, look, if there are young guys who are more deserving or more or ready or whatever, then it's not like he has a spot in the lineup cemented, right? I mean, you hope that there are tough choices to make. I just don't. I think the biggest thing is, like you said, it's like, man, how many mid-30 somethings are you going to try to pack onto this roster?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm with you that he doesn't have a spot cemented in, but he also has a $3.1 million cap hit. So,
that's true.
I mean, I think he's going to play, I think. So,
I guess I'm saying if someone were to emerge, I don't know that, like, it would be like, well, but we –
I'm with you there. Like, it's not like Eric Haula is not Steven Stamkos. Like, he's not blocking somebody else's spot at the moment. So, I'm totally with you there. I just – again – I always this time of year try to do my best to say, all right, let's just see how it finishes off and what else is coming here. But I just look at it and I say, we've talked all week about they're really light on 26, 27, 28-year-olds. And I realize those guys, unless you're paying a ton of money for them in unrestricted free agency, generally speaking, if they're good players, are really difficult to acquire. So I understand that totally. I look at the Eric Haula move on the surface and I think to myself, what purpose is this serving beyond the what Barry Trotz talked about of helping bring in young players along in terms of getting you back to a spot what we talked about all week of trying to win? What purpose is the Eric Haula move serving? And again, he's been a fine player. He's been a fine third line guy throughout his career. He is 34 now, and some of the numbers last year in New Jersey started to go completely the other way. So is he going to be something that changes the math all that much in the lineup? Probably not. What else is coming? And I guess the baseline question of all of this is, how much is Trotz this offseason looking to change over the roster? How much can he change over the roster? And what does he want his team to look like next year? Those are the fundamental questions of where this thing is going here.
Yeah, I will say with Haula, he can be a real jerk.
Yeah.
I mean, He brings some of that, so I can see. I think that's got to be part of this, right?
Good nickname though.
Yeah,
Famer.
Yeah,
what's
pretty
that?
good.
Good nickname.
Haula.
Famer.
Did they say that when he was here? I don't remember.
I think so.
That.
Yeah.
Famer?
Famer.
That, like they call him that, like they call Joey and
Haula,
Famer.
Famer.
I totally missed that.
Yeah.
That is a good nickname.
All
right, I like him even more. It's a great signing. No, I think it's got to be some of that, right? Some of the let's get some more jerks in here, right? I mean,
I will say the idea of him and Michael Bunting, you get a little bit of that sandpaper that you're looking for. I know Barry Trotz was looking for some of that.
Well, I saw Alex Doherty tweet. What about those two with LaRue?
Yeah,
on a line. That could be a real
nice steady parade to the penalty box at that point.
Yeah, probably. But hey, they'll take some shots on their way.
They will.
They'll get some shots in. I mean, the first thing I thought of was like, well, he is, he can be a real annoyance, a pest for opponents.
A shift disturber, as Pete Weber likes to say.
There you go.
Yes.
There you go. So that's the best I can come up with. It's not a move worth getting upset about. The way things are going, a move like this is probably going to be mostly greeted with what the heck, or skepticism, because I think fans are upset with the way things have gone, so they're upset at Barry Trotz, which is fair. But it's also like, it doesn't preclude them from improving the team or changing the math. It's just like, what are they going to do that? This does not do that.
Well, at the moment, cap space is not much of an issue for them. I mean, they're still paying on Duchesne, so that's going to come up here next year.
They're done with Turris?
They're not done with Turris.
They're still not done with Turris.
No. I think Turris, I can go look at this.
Amazing.
I want to say the Turris buyout goes until like 2028 or something like that. I'll go double check that. But
maybe that's why Jared said we don't judge Trotz till then.
I remember looking at it last year and thinking to myself, my God, how long does that Turris buyout go? I'll double check that here in a second. But
2028, that's the magic year.
I'm pretty sure it's like 2027 or 2028. So we'll see if we can figure that out here in a few minutes. But yeah, like first off, good time to be Kyle Turris. Still getting some of that money.
Heck yeah, man.
I look at where their roster is, and I think to myself, all right, you brought in another veteran player here. I believe Barry Trotz when he talks about he wants to see more young guys in the lineup. So then you look at it and you say, okay, so what are some corresponding moves that could be coming that make room for more younger guys in the lineup while also having just added Eric Haula? And it makes you wonder which veteran players could be on the way out here.
Yeah.
I think you would agree with this. I think we would all be very surprised if they got through this offseason and there wasn't at least a couple departures that you looked at and said, okay, didn't know if I expected that.
Yeah, departures.
Based on the way last year went.
Yeah, a couple guys who would be in the lineup next year who will just not be here.
Yeah.
Before this happened, I definitely expected that. And so, yeah, who is Haula replacing in Trotz's mind?
Kyle Turris is $2 million till 27-28.
Yep.
There we go.
There you go.
He's almost like Bobby Bonilla, man. Bobby Bonilla get that mill every year.
Kyle, here's another cut from mill for you.
I guess they paid $16 million to buy out the contract and $2 million per year through 27-28.
Yep.
Part of the illustrious last few years of the Nashville Predators. But yeah, someone is going to be out. Again, that's where it gets into. Okay, so they're getting out how?
Yep.
Are you moving them for something? Not. What's the vision? And Trotz, I'm sure there's a lot of variables. There's a lot of this. If this happens, this either or. I mean, you can't know for sure if you're Barry Trotz.
Here's another interesting thing, and this is probably not something necessarily to keep an eye on in the offseason, but if you're looking at their forward roster, I mean, Forsberg, Stamkos, Marchessault, O'Reilly, key players that they have are all signed for multiple years moving forward. Beyond that, like if you're looking at their forward group of established players right now, Bunting's got 1 year left. Haula's got 1 year left. Sissons has got 1 year left. Those are all guys that, depending on the way things go this year, like I said last segment with Haula, like if the Predators have a disappointing year again and they're out of it, Like, you could flip all those guys, and you could probably add O'Reilly
And
to
flip
that list
O'Reilly
too.
too.
Like,
yes.
there's a lot of, like, you can see Barry Trotz, like, he's not the one thing he's not really locked into is a lot of long-term deals. Now, look, you still have Stamkos and Marchessault and Forsberg and all those guys,
Soros.
but you've got some, Soros. But with your forwards, like, there are a lot of guys that I think that they could flip if it comes to that this year.
Yeah. And it may well come to that.
It might.
So get excited about some draft picks and prospects coming back.
I mean, it's certainly a possibility. 615-737-1025, our phone number. 615-737-1025. We'll continue to take your thoughts on the Predators. Got some of those to get to coming up next. Plus some more news in the college football world that we will get to as well. The best and worst things in sports coming up at 6:45. All that ahead. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. We'll have John McClain coming up at 7 o'clock from HoustonTexans.com. We'll get his thoughts on the Texans, all things AFC South, as we continue our tour through the AFC South this week. Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports will be with us at 8 o'clock. We'll get into the Titans and all things NFL with him. Taking your thoughts at 615-737-1025. We had a texter that said the Titans will have built a brand new stadium and will be playing in it before the Predators are done paying Kyle Turris. It is kind of amazing when you think about it that way. Matthew from Jolton talks about the tourist contract going until 27, 28. Duchesne until 28, 29. The Duchesne one sounds bad. This is the last year of like full pain on the Matt Duchesne deal. So the cap hit coming up this year for the Predators for Duchesne's buyout is $6.5 million. It's a pretty hefty number. And then for the next 3 years after that, the buyout goes down to $1.5 million. So this is kind of the big pain year for the Duchesne buyout. And right now they've got a buyout taken up, like according to Puckpedia, 9% of their cap when you factor in Duchesne and Turris together. They just got rid of the Johansson buyout. They've got $250,000 in retained salary for Ekholm. So that's the full amount of money that they're paying for other players to not be here right now. But the Duchesne one, they get a lot of relief in terms of the cap number after this season. So something to keep in mind there.
Yeah, it's quite a balanced sheet of stuff to navigate through. You hope you get to the point where you don't have to keep doing these buyouts and things like that because you make better choices. So Wayne is convinced that Texan Marchessault is the one being moved. Haula is replacing him as a mentor. Could be. Maybe.
I mean, I don't know that Eric Haula would be the mentor that I would replace Jonathan Marchessault with, but I'm not going to rule out the possibility that Marchessault could be moved this offseason. There's been a lot of buzz about that and around that. Now we'll see if that actually comes to fruition here. You know, there's a lot that has to happen there. He's got the full control of it. It's got to be a spot where he would want to go. And what's the return looking like? And if you're the Predators, is there a return that makes any sense for you to do that at this point? So there's a lot that kind of goes into that, but we'll see. I mean, you know, we talked last segment about probably some guys on the roster right now that you've got in pen that won't be here by the time this offseason's over with. I mean, he is certainly a candidate, I think, to potentially be involved in those trade talks.
Bottom line, welcome back to town, Famer.
That's right.
I don't remember anybody calling him Famer.
Haula?
I was actually around the team. Yeah, I get it. I
mean, I wonder what his, like
you could do a lot of things with
reference.
Haula.
You could. Like Pro Football Reference has those stupid nicknames that they give
the Pharaoh
the players, like the Pharaoh for Tom Brady,
which we'd never heard of before.
Or Trevor Lawrence is the prince who was promised, which is just hilarious. I'm going to pull up Eric Haula's hockey reference page and see what they got on there. Because, I mean, I imagine they've got some.
Haula, bunch of trees.
Haula back is on there.
Oh.
And Hallelujah. Those are the two they've got. Haula back.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. They don't have Famer.
Haula back is pretty good. Haula back. He ain't no Haula back forward.
It's pretty good. I don't know why Hockey Reference and Pro Football Reference and all these people have these things, but apparently they do.
But the guys in the room call him Famer.
Yeah. Hey, we're gonna find out. Joe, what's the latest on the college football front of this as they continue between the SEC and the Big Ten to try to figure out where all this is headed with the future of the college football playoff?
Before we get to that, can I just quickly mention one sports oddity that has happened in the world?
Sure.
Yesterday, I think it was both yesterday, Shedeur Sanders and Zach Edey both got cited for going 101 and a 55. How weird is that?
That's very weird. Be careful driving out there, folks.
Zach Edey, Shedeur Sanders, both going 101 in a 55.
What kind of car
they will forever be linked.
What kind of car do we think Zach Edey drives? There's only a limited amount that he could step into.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's a great question.
SUV, truck. Yeah, something like that for sure.
Yeah.
And here, driving an aircraft carrier is Zach Edey.
Get that sucker up to 101. Congrats. So there you go. Yeah, but on college football, these goobers are just going to end up, it's pretty hilarious. That we talked about this as a possibility, but now it actually looks like there's a real strong possibility that after all this, because the Big Ten and SEC can't come to an agreement, that we may just be looking at a continuation of 12 this same format in 2026. Now, my question on that, and I'm not sure the answer is, okay, yes. So it is. So it wouldn't just be 26. It should be 26 through 31. So that's what they're deciding. They're supposed to be deciding right now. They're meeting in Asheville. Again, you have to have a meeting and then another meeting and then another meeting. We've got David Ubben and Ralph Russo, friends of the show, in Asheville for this thing. And again, this is Rich Clark. He's the CFP executive director. This is quote, I wouldn't say there's a leading contender right now, but they're taking a good look and a fresh look at it. In other words, like they can't agree. And he also said the format could be a lot different or it may be the same. For people who don't remember, the Big Ten.
Breaking news there.
Yeah. No, I know. So the Big Ten is, again, they want the auto bid, the 4 auto bids for the Big Ten, the 4 auto bids for the SEC, 2 for the ACC, 2 for the Big 12. Everybody else, because the SEC has flipped on this, likes the 5 auto bids like they've had, and basically you just add 4 teams and you have a 5 plus 11, you have 11 at-large bids. Which, again, to me, none of it sounds perfect or amazing, but that's, to me, easily the best one. I've seen people making the case of how this will end up being disastrous for college football because the SEC will just load it with their teams and the regular season will be, will be minimized. And if you did the other way and you had these playing games, it would make it, you'd have more urgency in the season. And I hear all that. There are some fair points to be made, but those points do not overwhelm the absolute idiocy of we are the Big Ten SEC and we get 4 apiece and you get your little 2 apiece. The Big 12 and ACC might be smart to actually like the auto bids plan, but I'm glad that they don't. In the meantime, the SEC apparently not too keen on going to 9 games. So that's part of this too. I think if they did, the Big Ten would be like, fine, we'll do the 5-11. But the SEC doesn't look like it's going to do that, which is very disappointing. And it's year after year that we keep saying it's very disappointing the SEC won't play another conference game, just like the Big Ten does. So it looks like a stalemate. And if that's the case, meanwhile, you also have this push for, schedule strength to be more of a thing, which I'm for. So you've got CFP. They have met with Sports Source Analytics, a mathematician from Google.
Sure.
To look at the stats that they provide the committee. There's a strength of record metric they're talking about, which again, that's all fine. I mean, I think that it should be judged closely, but I also think this, you don't just get to be, we're the SEC, so it's just the toughest. Like, you better play good games against other conferences to prove that you're that good in that particular year. Because guess what? Last couple of years, the SEC has not been as good as it says it is. And that has been borne out in one, not winning the national title the last 2 years, and just not having as many good teams. So as long as that, that metric is actually based on the data from that season, I'm all for it.
I was thinking about the other day. Are we going to get to a point again in college football? And it's really all of college sports, but let's just focus in on college football specifically, where we spend more time talking about the actual sport than we do everything around it. Like, I was thinking about this. We don't do this in any other sport, right? Like the NFL. NFL is good and newsworthy all the time, but it's usually about like the, free agency moves or the draft or something. Like this, there's so much focus on conference commissioners and athletic directors in college football right now. We spent so much time talking, and I'm not just talking about us, I'm talking about in general. We spent so much time talking about them over the last 5 or 6 years. It's like, oh yeah, they play a sport out there too that's pretty good that we get to for a couple months out of the year.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
No, it is. Yeah, like the NFL, maybe there's a labor dispute or going to 18 games. There's stuff, but yes, there's not like it's completely imbalanced, especially because they can't figure out the economic model. Everybody's suing the pants off them. And now we have conference expansion and we have this stuff and the playoff. Yeah,
portal windows.
Like the people in suits in college football are just way too prevalent in everything.
We know way too many of their names.
And that's the thing, is the games are still like the actual product, the actual sport is so great. It still overcomes all this crap.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, in a way, you look at college football and say, tip the cap, because this stuff is also stupid. And yet we're going to pack the stadiums next. We're going to pack the tailgates in the stadiums, and people who grew up loving, whatever school and team are still going to do it. I mean, it's amazing that's been able to endure all this stuff. But yeah, in the meantime, hey guys, I hope you have some nice shrimp cocktail at your buffet there. Say some harumphs and try to figure something out for everybody.
I do want to give a quick shout out to Brandon on the YouTube chat, who is obviously Glenn Ellerby's biggest supporter out there.
Yeah.
Says that Ellerby loves bringing in Haula. Also going back to Shedeur Sanders, apparently being cited going 101 miles an hour in a 55-mile-an-hour zone. Brandon says, a couple weeks ago, Sanders went 144 when he was supposed to go in 25, referring to his draft number, being drafted number 144 overall when he's projected to go in the 20s.
Well played.
Nice job, Brandon.
Well played, Brandon.
Very well done. 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. It is time for the best and worst things in sports for this week. We'll take your best thing, your worst thing on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. We'll get to that coming up next. John McClain will be with us at 7 o'clock. All that coming up. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
The best and worst of the sports week, now on Robby and Rexrode.
On ESPN.
102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
This is the worst. You look like you're feeling sorry for yourself. I believe in miracles. Yes! Unbelievable.
He's one of one. He is him.
This is a Coke bottle. It's not a crystal ball.
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
It is that time of the week, time for the best and worst things in sports. We'll take your best things, your worst things on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Joe Rexrode, kick us off with your best and worst things in the world of sports.
Apologies to both of you because you may have variations of this, but I got to go best in sports. I got to go with the Florida Panthers just to say just a tremendous accomplishment, amazing team, an argument as I've seen. Look, the dynasty stuff, we'll see. Yeah, certainly when you win back-to-back, it's a fair thing to talk about. But also I've seen best team of the Cap era. That's a lofty, commentary, but it's really amazing. They're an amazing team, and the depth and someone texted us like a breakdown of like how they balance out their lines and how they built that team. And it's I don't know if it's a model that that you can totally follow. Like you said yesterday, Kachuk totally changed everything when they went and got him, but they are just a tremendous top to bottom team, amazing champion. And I think sometimes when you focus so much on, Connor McDavid on the other side and Canada and all that, you don't want to miss the forest through the trees. Like, this is an incredible team and achievement. Hats off to the Florida Panthers. My worst, if anybody watched Arkansas baseball last night, holy crap. I mean, I think David from Arkansas is a regular texter for us, and if he doesn't text today, I don't blame him. Like,
He just texted.
Did he? Okay. Well, there you go.
He's struggling today.
David, I'm sorry, man. It's heartbreaking. My number one thing I think about is, if you didn't see it, it's a line shot to left, and it's the game's over. And if you just catch it, and it kind of, it was a tough one, and it gets away, and then LSU ties it, and then goes on to win it. Before that, you could have tried to, turn a double play, and you went to third, but it's another example of Arkansas failing in Omaha, and it's just brutal for the fans. But I especially feel bad for that kid and the guys who made the mistakes. And man, I saw what Wes Rucker tweeted. I totally agree. It's like some people who love those kids and you take their phones away from them right now. You think about that, but I feel also for Dave Van Horn and and just the whole Arkansas baseball contingent, because that is just a killer of a way to lose a game and be eliminated.
Yep, it's pretty rough to watch. And there was clips going around this morning that I woke up and saw of like all of his teammates, like basically just consoling him out there. And it was every now and then there's some moments in sports that you're just like, man, I feel so bad for that guy. And that was one of those last night. Ian Safar, your best and worst things in the world of sports.
Yeah, I also had the Panthers down, just as the best. The way they were kind of went through the playoffs, and I don't know, kind of proved me wrong, proved a lot of people wrong, I think, just bouncing back. So I'll take the low-hanging fruit and go Panthers. Worst, I'll throw in the Edmonton goalies, especially Skinner there in that last game. I mean, that third goal, that's just right there.
Brutal.
And so I'll throw that. And then I'm going to throw in little New York baseball. Combine the Mets and the Yankees, just terrible. So I'll throw those in there.
My best thing in sports, JJ Spawn's walk-off putt at the U.S. Open to win that one. It was awesome. He didn't have to make that putt. He had the two-putt there. But to make that putt in the way that he did, and just the reaction after that was pretty awesome. So JJ Spawn winning the U.S. Open. He's got type 1 diabetes. I have type 1 diabetes. So shout out to JJ Spawn out there.
Nice.
My worst thing in sports, Corey Perry, man. This is the fifth cup final in a row he's lost. Corey Perry, it's not like he played poorly. He had one chance in Game 6 the other night where he could have put one in the back of the net. It was a tough play. It was kind of a pass from McDavid that Forsling did a good job from Florida of kind of getting in the way of the lane, and the pass was just a little bit too far from Corey Perry. And had he scored there, I wonder if that could have ignited something, but it didn't. And this is now 5 of the last 6 cup finals that he's been to, and he's lost all 5 of them, which I know people around here are just taking great joy in. And it is kind of amazing. I don't know that I've ever seen anything quite like that of a player making a final in really any sport 5 years and 5 times in a 6-year span and losing all of them. I mean, it's pretty tough to do. I mean, I know the Bills lost 4 in a row in the Super Bowl. I guess that's probably the closest thing, right? Like, if you're Corey Perry, you're on a tough run right now of getting pretty close, but not being able to close the deal.
Here's what I have to say to Corey Perry. That wasn't very good. But yeah, it's really the biggest source of solace for someone who I really wanted Edmonton to win. I wanted McDavid and Draisaitl to get a cup, but Corey Perry not getting one is a decent consolation.
It is a consolation there.
A point from David in Arkansas also. Gage Woods no hitter.
Yes.
So he's got a best and a worst on Arkansas baseball.
Yes, a lot of votes for Arkansas baseball
Quite
being
the,
the worst in sports.
Quite the swing there.
Yeah.
From one to the other.
It's quite a swing. There's no doubt. William from Madison saying the best was the Diego Pavia interview that he did on Bussin' with the Boys, saying that part of the interview saying that they're going to run the state of Tennessee coming up, which has generated a lot of reaction around the college football world.
Yes, it has. You know, Tennessee, Vol Twitter seems a little bit agitated by Vanderbilt. I don't know, man. I think we need Tim to call in and Robby and Tim to talk about this a little bit. That's what I would like to have happen. Good point on the worst here. The texter says the Titans copy and paste on Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to all you moms.
Yeah, that was a tough one too.
It's fine.
Cole from Nashville pointing this out, and this is very interesting to think about. So you think back to that series between Boston and Florida.
Wow,
remember the year that Boston set the regular season wins record, and it looked like they were about to march their way to a cup. They were up 3-1 in that series, and Brad Marchand had a chance as time was expiring in Game 5 on a breakaway to end it, and he didn't. And Florida came back and won that game in overtime and then went on to win that series and got to the first of their 3 consecutive cup finals. It is kind of amazing to think about that and what all has gone on since then. Like, if Marchand connects on that breakaway, does Boston go on to win the cup that year? Florida obviously doesn't get to the cup final that year. Now, they're still a really good team after that, so maybe they just go on to win the next 2 cups anyway. But it is amazing that everything that's transpired since then with Florida and the fact that Marchand is now a part of Florida, and you could have made a case for him to be the playoff MVP this year.
God, I totally forgot about that too. That is a great point. It's amazing how some things can work out, you know, and how close things can be. And look, it's not exactly the same thing, but it's like, you know, you look at McDavid and right now he could be a 2-time champion.
Yeah.
And think about how different things might be for him, and maybe how different things might work out from here because they just missed a couple. I don't know. We'll see.
Cam on the text line says, no one cares what the Johnny Manziel wannabe, he said.
Oh, there we go, Vols fans. Get excited.
Get a little spice.
I think he's a great nomination for best. I mean, look, you know, I am more excited for Tennessee Vanderbilt now than I'm always excited for that game. Some years you can tell it's not going to be a good game. Some years, I think this year it's
got a
chance to be a good game. And now, I mean, I can't wait. Pre-game warm-ups are going to be exciting for that sucker.
Could be. John McClain will be with us coming up next from HoustonTexans.com. We'll get his thoughts on the Texans and the rest of the AFC South as we continue our tour this week through the AFC South. That's coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Thursday morning, talking some AFC South and the Houston Texans. And to help us do that, we head to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in the great John McClain from HoustonTexans.com. John, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great, guys. Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate you taking time to be with us this morning. So, John, I just want to start with the Texans and what they've done on the offensive side of the ball this offseason, kind of revamping their offensive line. They've added a couple receivers in the draft, and Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel. So what do you make of kind of the revamping of the offense and how you feel about that group heading into this year?
Well, first of all, I think the Texans have a Super Bowl caliber defense, but they do not have a Super Bowl caliber offense, and I don't think they're a Super Bowl caliber team until they show that they have improvements in their offensive line. The way they lined up in the off-season program, they would have 4 new starters in their line, and they brought in 5 new players. Their highest draft pick was a second-round tackle from Minnesota, Ariante Ersrey, and then they traded for guard and signed 3 veterans. None of them are coming off a real good season. If they were, they wouldn't be available. So they traded Laramie Tunsil, their left tackle, who was their best lineman. It had nothing to do with his performance. They traded him to Washington. So until they show that they can do a better job of protecting C.J. Stroud, who not only was the second most sacked quarterback, but he was number 1 most pressured. And there was a stat in which players, at least one offensive lineman, beaten at the snap of the ball, the Texans had the highest percentage in the league. They fired their coach. They elevated their assistant line coach, Cole Popovich, brought in a new offensive coordinator, Nick Caley, from the Rams. They fired Bobby Slowick, which I was still surprised about. But Caley turned down a couple other offers to come here. He wants to be a head coach and thinks playing with Stroud. And they've got a good running game in which they've added Nick Chubb to go with Joe Mixon and a couple of returning guys. So everything starts up front. I don't see wide receiver being an issue. They also signed veteran Christian Kirk, who had burned them repeatedly with the Jaguars when he was healthy. But it all starts up front. And I tell people, they act like Nick Caley, the coordinator and play caller, is the most important assistant coach on the team. And I tell them, no. The most important coach is Cole Popovich, the offensive line coach, because it doesn't matter who's calling the plays or what great play calls they are. If you can't protect your quarterback, you're just spinning your wheels.
Yeah, and it's actually, you touch on what I was going to ask you, John, the Slowick Caley transition. I mean, it's amazing how much less intelligent apparently Bobby Slowick got in a year after he was one of the darlings, coaches out there that might get a head coaching job. So what's fair with him? Like you said, you struggle to block. A lot of people can look incompetent on the coaching level. And with Caley, who of course he was pass game coordinator, tight ends coach under McVay. We know a lot of really good coaches have come, from McVay. What are your early impressions of him and how things might change schematically?
It was interesting after the first season, which Texans were the surprise division winner, killed Cleveland in the first round before losing at Baltimore. Bobby Slowick interviewed for 5 head coaching jobs. I can't remember how many vacancies there were. He decided he needed another year of experience, came back, signed an extension. And then the one thing he did not do last year is he struggled to adjust to the adjustments that the defense has made. When you give a defensive coordinators a whole off season to watch tape and to watch a quarterback and an offense specifically, and they change how they attack you, you've got to adjust to their adjustments, and they didn't do it. And one reason was the offensive line. And they could run block, but they couldn't pass protect. And it was pathetic at times, and it was a lot of the same players from the year before. So Nick Caley, who had other opportunities, he is with the Patriots before he went to the Rams, and he's a great talker, a Canton, Ohio native, and he impresses everybody when he talks, whether it's the media or whether it's the players. But you guys know you can't tell squat in an off-season program when they don't put on pads or anything, and a poor old lineman, they can only play patty cake. So until they get to camp and put on the pads and we watch them hit, and then when they have joint practices, we're not going to know if we look it up front and go, they're better with a new coach and a new coordinator, or they're just like moving around a bunch of piles of you know what.
So, John, we know how much the rest of the AFC South beyond Houston has struggled recently with the Colts, the Jags, and the Titans. And Houston, the team to beat heading into this year in the division. How much of a gap, if any, do you think there is between Houston and the other division leaders, whether it's the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Bills, those type of teams?
Well, I don't think that they're on the same level as the best teams in the AFC. Now, I don't think Kansas City is going back to the Super Bowl because the Super Bowl loser never goes back other than New England one year. So I think it's going to come down to Baltimore, Buffalo. And the Texans beat Buffalo last year and lost to Baltimore 2 times. Once, lost to Kansas City twice. So they're not there yet. But they should win the division for the 3rd year in a row. And a lot of it has to do with the quarterbacks. I'm interested in seeing what Liam Cohen can do with Trevor Lawrence. And I'm interested to see if Anthony Richardson continues on a path to be one of the biggest busts in history, or Daniel Jones is going to be the starter. I think most of us probably think it'll be Jones, even if Richardson starts out. And then, of course, Cam Ward, who's from real close to Houston. And I tell people, the thing about Cam Ward, every year he's been in football, he's improved. And if that happened to him in high school as a senior at Incarnate Word in San Antonio and at Washington State and then Miami to where he became a star, there's no reason to suspect that he won't continue on that same path. And even though he's a rookie and he's going to struggle. And so I think it's the Texans, clearly number 1. Anybody can finish number 2. And really, who gets the best quarterback play and can keep the quarterback healthy has a chance to be number 2. Right now, I don't see any of those teams having a winning record, opposed to 2 years ago when 3 of them had winning records. I think it's still a division in progress.
Yeah, we were talking Jags yesterday, John, specifically on them. What do you think about the Liam Cohen hire? What he did in Tampa, and because obviously Doug Peterson came in there and immediately was like, okay, now Trevor Lawrence has a guy who's developed quarterbacks and good offensive mind, and we know it of course went the other way. And at some point you're like, so was it on Peterson, or is there just a limitation with Lawrence that some people don't want to acknowledge? But what do you think about Cohen and Lawrence as a pairing?
Well, go back to what he did with Will Levis at Kentucky. And so he has done a really good job with the quarterbacks. And I don't feel bad for Lawrence, but ever since he won that national championship, everybody had it pegged as a generational prospect when he came out. The previous that way was Andrew Luck, and Luck was, except he retired early. Before that, it was John Elway. But Trevor Lawrence, and I know he got off to that slow start with the Urban Meyer fiasco, but if he's ever going to put it together, you would think this would be the season, but it's still up in the air. And until he proves he could do it on a consistent basis and stay healthy, there are going to be questions about it. He has certainly not been a generational quarterback, but the fact is he is a former first overall pick. Cam Ward's a first overall pick. Daniel Jones was like 6th. Anthony Richardson was 4th. It's not because this division is not able to use high picks on quarterbacks, but I'm really interested to see what Cohen does because he was supposed to be a rising star, and we'll find out.
John, you brought up the Colts and Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones, and that's going to be really interesting to monitor how that goes. Obviously, the passing of Jim Irsay, very sad to see, and now the new ownership setup that they've got in Indianapolis. So what do you just make of kind of the overall picture right now of where the Colts are, where things are headed and the idea that maybe they're looking for a new quarterback pretty soon as next year in the draft?
Everybody thinks that Carly, Jim Irsay's oldest daughter, who's been very involved with the team, wears headsets on game days to keep up with what's going on. And she was quoted as saying, when you're paying as much money as we pay, I like to know what we're paying the money for. So will she be like her dad? Will she show patience in Chris Ballard? I would think Chris Ballard, the GM's job's on the line. He's the one that selected Anthony Richardson. If they fall back or don't get any better, it's pretty obvious in Shane Steichen's third season, he could be under pressure. You always wonder with a new owner, in what direction is that owner going to go? I'm guessing Daniel Jones is going to be the starting quarterback, and he's done something Anthony Richardson hasn't done. He's had 2 really good seasons. He's had injury-plagued seasons, and then he's had at times terrible team in front of him. So he's gone from the Giants, and it might be good for him. They've got a good offense. My goodness, they got receivers. They got Jonathan Taylor, one of the best running backs in the league. I'm not sure about their offensive line or their defense, but they have the talent to do something. But maybe because Richardson started only 13 games at Florida, he's needed 2 seasons as a starter and part-time because he's hurt and benched. And this should be the season that we find out, is Anthony Richardson worth anywhere near what they invested in him, or does he go down as perhaps the second or third biggest bust in history? Ryan Leaf will always be number 1 at quarterback, Jamarcus Russell number 2, and Anthony Richardson is in that territory right now, but he's got another season to come in, prove he can stay healthy and lead that offense. But when you're inaccurate in college, there's a good chance you're going to be inaccurate in the NFL, and he has been inaccurate in both.
So, John, I'm seeing tweets with interviews with Jimmy Johnson. Looks like you're working on a documentary. This sounds awesome. Tell us about this.
Well, it's a documentary I've been working on with 3 filmmakers about the Prairie View Interscholastic League, high school football in Texas before integration. There's 12 members of the Pro Football Hall of Fame who played in the PVIL. 3 are alive: Joe Green, Ken Houston, and Emmett Thomas. And Jimmy Johnson's role in that, the 1960 Corpus Christi Miller team won the first state championship for an integrated team in Texas. And the coach, who's 97 years old, we went to Lubbock, Texas, interviewed him, and he said the best player we played in that 13-1 season was one we beat in the semifinals, Port Arthur Jefferson, and that was middle linebacker Jimmy Johnson. So we went to Key Largo, spent a day with him talking about the times back then with the all-black PVIL and the all-white UIL and what it was like to lose to that team that beat Wichita Falls in the championship the next week. So we've interviewed current Hall of Famers, guys like Joe Green and Ken Houston. We've interviewed historians and media, and our goal is to have it out in March and try to have it in South by Southwest Film Festival. And we have a labor of love, and we think we have stumbled on something really big because we can't find other documentaries, and nobody has turned us down. And one of the cool things we've done, players like Eric Dickerson, Jacob Green, and Warren Moon, Mike Singletary, guys who told us they couldn't have done what they've done without standing on the shoulders of those players. And I asked Warren Moon, you grew up in L.A. What does that have to do with you? You didn't play in an all-black organization. He said, no, but the greatest high school quarterback, PVIL star, Eldridge Dickey, who played at Tennessee State for John Merritt, he's the reason I played quarterback. And he said he was the first black quarterback taken in the first round in '68 by the Raiders. And Moon always said, every time somebody wanted to move me, I thought of Eldridge Dickey, and I used to read his stats at Tennessee State when he was in the Sporting News in the back of College Football Weekly. And so we've got a lot of cool stuff. Thank you for asking.
That's awesome.
Yep, really looking forward to that. That's going to be great. So looking forward to that. John, you're always a treat to have on the show. Appreciate your time as always, and we will talk to you soon, my friend.
My pleasure, guys. Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks, John.
The great John McClain on with us. We'll react to what John had to say. Take your thoughts on the AFC South. Plus, I want to get Joe's thoughts on a question I just had for McClain, which I think is very interesting heading into this year. We'll get into all that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. This week's Nashville's best deal is Body Rock. Plank, lunge, twist, and push your limits with Body Rock's dynamic muscle sculpting Pilates-inspired classes designed to rock your body to the core. Get half off a $50 gift card at thegamenashville.com/deals. to use at any of Body Rock's 4 Nashville locations while supplies last. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Appreciate John McClain for being with us in the last segment. We will have Charles Robinson at 8 o'clock. So a big day on the program for high-level, Houston-based NFL writers on the program today.
Yeah, a lot of great NFL analysis and reporting coming out of Houston, Texas.
A lot on our show today.
How about that? Yeah,
absolutely.
All on the show.
We will have the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode coming up at 7:45, in which apparently there's something he's really upset about, according to the grid I'm reading here. So I'm looking forward to that coming up at 7:45. I have no idea what it is, so it's going to be exciting.
I'm pissed.
Okay, we'll get into that coming up a little bit later here in the program. So I threw out we've had the how good are the Texans in comparison to the rest of kind of the AFC elite teams discussion already this offseason. My question for you right now is, if you had to pick one, you can pick one team that is going to break through and get to the Super Bowl, the first, that's not named the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC. And I realize that Cincinnati did this a few years ago, but Kansas City has now gone on a run since then where they're just going to the Super Bowl all the time. So who would be the team that you would pick, Joe Rexrode, if you could only pick one that is the team that finally breaks through Kansas City and gets to the Super Bowl out of the AFC? Is it Baltimore? Is it Buffalo? Is it Cincinnati? Is it somebody else? Is it Houston? What would your answer to that be if you could only pick one to get through Kansas City?
Well, I'm kind of with McClain. He named the two that I think it has to be one of those two. Like Cincinnati, and they just got an absurd season from Joe Burrow and didn't make the playoffs. Their defense was terrible. Their best defensive players holding out. I just can't go there. Like, do I feel like Cincinnati's due for a bounce back year where they get in the playoffs and can be a threat? Yes, but I can't get to Cincinnati in its current state actually being a contender as great as Burrow is. So it's Buffalo or Baltimore, and it's a great question. I feel like maybe there's a little bit. This is one of those things where it's like you got to remove yourself, because my heart says Baltimore. I would love to see Derek get that opportunity. Derek's such a great player, and it'd be great to see him get to the Super Bowl. It would be great to see Lamar Jackson get to a Super Bowl. I just think they're as fun a team as there is to watch. Not that Buffalo isn't fun to watch.
They just became less likable yesterday, but yes.
Yeah, well, I was actually going to ask you about that. Like, I know you're not a huge Jair Alexander. You're not sad to see him go, but I also feel like maybe that's a nice ad for them. If he's healthy, he'll be fine. If he could stay on the field, it's a great ad for them. We'll see if he can do it. He's only 28, so if he can stay on the field, he will be a good player for them. I'm interested to see how that part of it goes. And obviously, there's a connection there between Jair Alexander and Lamar Jackson, having both played at Louisville together. Right. So I don't think I'm voting with my heart here. I think I give them a slight edge, but I think it's very close. And John McClain, he just stating it like fact. We know the Chiefs aren't going to the Super Bowl because the loser doesn't ever go back. I think the Chiefs can be the team that breaks that.
They can go back.
But yeah, I think it is the year for either Baltimore or Buffalo. I think that's just how it should go. And I would pick that. I would pick one of them.
Didn't last year kind of feel like the year for Buffalo? At
it
times?
Did.
It felt
especially when they beat them.
It did.
And they beat them. And
Like last year kind of felt like the year it was going to happen.
And
then it didn't.
At times I thought it was the year for Baltimore too. At times I was like, oh, that's just the best team. But yeah, that's the problem, is that we all think it's going to happen, and then Patrick Mahomes happens.
Yeah, it's interesting we're having this discussion, because if I asked you right now, if you could pick two teams that you think are the Vegas odds, FanDuel Sportsbook favorite to win the Super Bowl, what two teams would you pick?
This is the whole league.
The whole league.
To win the Super Bowl, I'm probably going to go Eagles Chiefs.
The they're co-favorites to win the Super Bowl this year, according to FanDuel Sportsbook, at plus 700 odds for both of them. The Baltimore Ravens and the Buffalo Bills.
Wow. Okay.
They are co-favorites. Kansas City and Philadelphia are right behind them at plus 750. They're tied right behind them. But
and you said those two are plus 7?
yeah, Ravens and Bills are plus 700. There you go.
That's very interesting. Very, very interesting.
Not that that means anything when you get on the field at the end of the day, but that kind of goes in support of, I mean, it feels like it's one of their years to break through. I would pick Buffalo. I just, Josh Allen and the way that team played last year, you know, they were right there in the AFC title game. I think at some point they're going to be the ones that break through. I think either one of them can do it. Like, I need to see Derrick Henry have another year close to like he had last year. I still have some questions about Baltimore and their receiving core. Although, you know, they got D-Hop now. They got all these former Titans walking around over there. So, you know, maybe D-Hop, even though he didn't do anything in Kansas City, maybe he'll go to Baltimore and he'll get back in the time machine. He'll get 900 yards this year in Baltimore.
I wouldn't be surprised if he does something, you know, helps out a little bit. Yeah, how old is he now? I mean,
he's not as old as you think.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, even when he was here, he was like 32, right? And you thought he was 36.
He's 33. He'll be 30. He just turned 33 a couple weeks ago.
So he was 31 and 32 playing here.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, you never know. You know, you can get rejuvenated by, you know, a team, and again, just playing in that offense. Like, there's just so many things that are open for you because of like the conflict Lamar Jackson puts you in. So I don't hate that ad either. Yeah, then I think, you know, one of the things that I would lean Baltimore's way on is coaching. You know, I mean, Harbaugh has actually been there. He's
won
the super goofy Harbaugh. We're talking John, not Jim, who continues to say goofy stuff out in LA. But you know, I mean, look, I just think McDermott still has to prove that he can get it done. Some of these things that have happened to them, it's hard for me to pin on him. But at the same time, I think that there's a coaching advantage there in Baltimore over Buffalo.
615-737-1025, our phone number. Your thoughts on the AFC? Which team would you pick to break through and get past Kansas City? Baltimore? Buffalo? Someone else? We'll take your thoughts on that. 615-737-1025. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby and Rexrode brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. Live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. We'll have the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode, which he's apparently unbelievably fired up about, coming up here in just a few minutes. So we'll get into that. Taking your thoughts in the meantime, 615-737-1025, our phone number. 615-737-1025. Jeff in Nebraska on the text line says Jim Harbaugh might be weird, but I could see the Chargers winning the West and making some kind of playoff run. There's no denying that he's a good coach. So Jeff throwing the Chargers in the mix in the AFC. Joe, what do we think of that?
Yeah. Well, no. I mean, first of all, yeah, Harbaugh's a good coach. There's no doubt. Now, you know, you look at what he did at Stanford, really impressive. Obviously, what he did with the Niners, really impressive. I mean, he won a natty with Michigan. Now, what he did at Michigan for the first several years was getting himself on the verge of being fired, getting himself a huge reduction in pay, and then Connor Stallions,
and then calling in the military and having a spy operation.
Calling in, the Navy SEALs to help him cheat. He certainly
passing along information to Shane Beamer.
Certainly blurred the lines on multiple fronts, but I'm not. Of course, he is a good coach. It's going to be really interesting to see how that works out. I mean, look, his track record as a football coach and Justin Herbert's talent level. If you're a Chargers fan, you should in the next couple years you should expect big things, like big things. Like you should be contending, you know, for a spot in the Super Bowl. So we'll see. That's a lofty expectation, but I think that's why Harbaugh, that job was appealing to him, was appealing to Mike Vrabel, who by reporting finished second to Harbaugh because of Herbert.
Chargers, by the numbers on the FanDuel Sportsbook, have the 6th best odds in the AFC to win the Super Bowl. Baltimore, Buffalo tied at 1, then Kansas City, and then it's Cincinnati, Houston, and then the Chargers. So Chargers coming in at number 6 on that front. So,
okay.
Adam in Portland also
right.
having a vote for the Chargers. One texter says it's not about beating Kansas City to get to the Super Bowl. It's about beating Kansas City and the refs to get to the Super Bowl. So the ref conspiracy lives on heading into this year.
Yeah. How come the refs didn't help out in the Super Bowl?
Didn't go very well for the refs in Kansas City in the Super Bowl.
Did not. The whole league had to eat it there. Caleb says, yeah, Michigan definitely cheated. Won't convince you otherwise. Helped South Carolina beat Tennessee. I'll die in that hill. Yeah, maybe. I mean, maybe they just bad team, honestly, went about scoring touchdowns on 11 straight possessions or whatever the hell it was.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Some things starting to make a whole lot more sense from that night.
Yeah. I have asked multiple staff members, by the way, that were on that Tennessee staff if they thought that was the case. And I didn't get back like, oh, there's no question, but like, yeah, it's something we've talked about. But it's like, but it's like, I mean,
we have discussed it.
It's circumstantial as opposed to anything that they. Yeah. I think if Tennessee had any sort of smoking gun on it, there'd be stuff written. More about that, but certainly possible.
Votes for the Ravens and Buffalo, obviously, as the top favorites. Eli says if Cincinnati gets any form of defense, they're going to win it all.
Great.
Are they going to get any form of defense? Yeah. I don't know.
If the Titans get any form of offense and defense, are they not winning it all? I think they might.
I mean, it is kind of amazing to go back and look at the numbers that Burrow put up last year and think about that team not making the playoffs. Like, it's pretty incredible. Like, that's how bad they were on the defensive side of the ball. Now, apparently, Trey Hendrickson and the Bengals are back at the negotiating table in discussions.
It might be getting a little bit thawed.
Right. So we'll see what happens on that front. But having said that, Joe, last time I checked, Trey Hendrickson was on that defense last year, and they were still that bad. So we'll see if there's any sort of significant improvement one way or the other.
They were straight buns. They were the bungles on defense. So, yeah, you certainly need him. But you're going to have to really turn things around. You can't – I mean, defense wins championships, a little bit overplayed. I think in a lot of sports now, offense wins championships. But terrible defenses don't win championships. I'll stick with that maxim and feel pretty good about it.
I'll toss another one, another couple teams at you that I don't know that I would classify as Super Bowl contenders, but are very interesting to me heading into this year. One, obviously, being Pittsburgh with Aaron Rodgers at the helm. Number two, what about Denver? Because Denver has Bo Nix in year 2. You got, even though sometimes I think he's just absolutely insufferable, you have Sean Payton, who is, I mean, there's no denying he's a great coach. He's a great coach.
Mm-hmm.
So you got those two. Better play from Bo Nix than I thought possible last year in his rookie year. A defense that's really, really good. Titans are going to see this firsthand in week 1 coming up. You know, they're in the same division as Kansas City, so that's a big problem. They're in the same division as the Chargers. So, I mean, that one's got a chance to be a pretty darn good division with those 3 teams, and now you've got Geno Smith quarterbacking the Raiders, so we'll see what all happens on that front. But what do you make of Denver in year 2 with Bo Nix? Is this going to be a continuation? Is Bo Nix a sophomore slump candidate to you? How do you view the Broncos?
Yeah, no, I think, look, they can, very good. I think the roster's pretty solid, very good defense. I do feel like Bo Nix, it just seems to me like he should be this year's like CJ Stroud. Again, it's not like Stroud had a terrible year, by the way, but OC got fired. You know, there were other issues. And again, this is like, and it's almost like the Indiana Pacers for me. Like, no matter how much evidence there is, I just can't believe it based on what I had seen previously. I still can't believe Bo Nix is going to be like a really good quarterback in the NFL. I just can't believe it. So that may be on me. And if he keeps progressing this year, then it's a great example of how people can get better. You know, John McClain talked earlier in the show about a great point about Cam Ward. Another way to look at it, like he seems to be getting better year after year after year. If that continues, man, that's good for the Titans. I mean, Bo Nix, you think about like talking NFL when that guy was moving on from Auburn and stuff, it would have been laughable, just laughable that he would ever be, to me, even be in the NFL, let alone be a starter, let alone be like a promising young quarterback. So kudos to him, but I am skeptical that there's not going to be some kind of regression this year.
Bo Nix last year, right around 3,800 yards, 29 touchdowns, 12 picks. Completed 66.3% of his passes. It's pretty good. Really good numbers.
And, you know, it's like when coming out of Oregon, a lot of the talk was, well, if he's in the right scheme and it's, you know, he's good at, he gets the ball out, the short stuff, you get it in playmakers' hands, play point guard. I'm like, yeah, great. But like, you have to be more than that to be a good NFL quarterback. Well, I think he probably is more than that. How much more than that? They are definitely, you know, a really interesting team. You know, another thing Adam in Portland brought up, Robby. I think this is someone else said this the other day. I never got to it. You know, we always talk about dynasties. But I mean, if the Titans, how many teams are horrific 3 years in a row in the NFL? Could the Titans be on the verge of a reverse dynasty? Now, I think you probably could find some great stretches from the Browns. Jets. I promise you that, yeah, the Lions have had some wonderful stretches. That's an interesting question. I'd like to know again, 3-14 is bottoming out. So what are we talking the last 2 years combined? They are 8, right? Did they win 5 the year before?
I think 6 the year before.
Okay. See, the 6th the year before is a little bit, that kind of messes up. 9 wins in 2 years. But if they have like 12 in 3 years, let's say.
Yeah.
How many teams have had a 12 win in 3 year stretch? And granted, there's more opportunity now too in this recent era with 17 games.
Well, I mean, and also like the Titans have never really approached being just horrible for 3 years. Now
like they had the 14 and 15 and then boom, 16 rise up. Is this year going to be like 16 or is it going to be new territory?
Now they did have, like I'm looking through their history right now. They had 6-10, 7-9, and then 2-14, 3-13. So not good.
No,
but they weren't like, you know, abject failures in every aspect of trying to play football.
7-9 is still 7-9 has made the playoffs.
Right. And they were second in their division that year, by the way, being second, 7-9.
AFC South tradition.
So it is a tradition there. You know, 6-11 2 years ago, 3-14 last year. Can you get back to, I don't know, 7 wins this year?
That'd be progress. And you would certainly distance yourself from some of the worst stretches. I got to see like how many the Lions had their 0-16 and 08. What they do on the other side. I know that the next year with Stafford, they did win a few games, but not that many. But people were still excited about Matthew Stafford because he was obviously good, which is possible with Cam Ward this year. By the way,
The Lions, man, think about this 2-year stretch: 08, 0-16, 09, 2-14.
that's right. They only won 2.
Yeah.
They only won 2. And yet, I promise you, in the 2-win season, people were like, oh, Matthew Stafford's a real deal. That's how bad they were.
Man,
He could look good and get you excited, and they won 2 games.
the 2000s Lions.
Special,
01, 2-14,
special.
02, 3-13, 05, 5-11, 06, 3-13, and 0-16 and 2-14 tossed in there. Pretty good stuff.
Oh, man. Matt Millen just what receiver am I drafting this year? Incredible. He finally got one right with Calvin Johnson, at least.
We'll have the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode coming up next. He's apparently really mad. We'll get into that. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment. Let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robby and Rexrode.
There's one guy that acted like that in the NBA at that point. His name was Isaiah Thomas. You worship him like a hero.
You're out of your mind. There is no way that LeBron will ever beat Jordan. Nobody will ever beat Jordan, okay?
Of course you think LeBron's better.
Okay, LeBron's a better rebounder and passer.
Not into the if this, if that type of scenarios. If Worms had machine guns, then birds wouldn't be scared of them.
Call me when LeBron has 6 championships.
That's your only argument?
It's the only argument I need, Sean.
That's the only argument I need, Sean.
You're an idiot.
Want to say hi to somebody?
Yes, my wife Anne-Marie, our friends and family back in Ohio, Colorado, and Virginia, and LeBron James.
Hi, LeBron.
It is that time of the day, time for the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode. I've been looking forward to this all show because he's really mad. I don't know what he's mad about. So, Joe, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I'm not ranting about LeBron over Jordan. I will say, I mean, we're about to enter the part of the summer where we probably can do things like argue about LeBron versus Jordan. I will just say this. This was a super hot debate in like sports talk 8 years ago, if you remember. 8 years ago, LeBron took that Cleveland team that had no business winning. I think it was Game 7 in Boston, and they won it, and he dominated the game. And it was like, the Nick Wrights of the world. Like it became, Stephen A., everybody, LeBron, Jordan. This huge debate. And I think it was close then. When he won that game, before he won that game, I personally was like, nah, Jordan's still the best. That game flipped me. But it's funny that 8 years later, and I understand, like, he's not winning titles now. But 8 years later, like just a year ago, he was one of the 2 best players in the Olympics at his age in the world. And yet people are like, I feel like there's less momentum for him. There should be more. Should there not be?
I agree.
But see, Ian's mashup got me off topic. So let me just tell you how I got triggered.
Ian, come on.
Hey, man, I just put them together. Sometimes random. I apologize.
That's how David Reed decided to award Jared his fake win yesterday. Is Michael Jeffrey Jordan is the best player. That's fine. We can debate this another day. But I'm going to talk about how I got triggered. So I got to call out Easton Freeze. I like Easton. Does a good job covering the Titans, A to Z Sports. And I don't know why this triggered me. Maybe just because it's like from an unexpected source. Like you expect some people to say stuff like this. But I'm just looking, and I don't even really like look at Twitter that much anymore. But I'm there's the clip yesterday of Caitlin Clark getting knocked over. This is Easton Freeze's tweet that just set me off. I don't even get into Twitter arguments with people anymore. And yet I did with Easton. He said, quote, "These WNBA players hell-bent on treating Caitlin like this might actually be the biggest morons on the entire planet. She is your walking, talking meal ticket. She is the messiah of your sport. You have to be an astonishing idiot to treat her this way. At least the hockey players who played in the Gretzky era knew where their bread was buttered," end quote. There's a lot to unpack there because I forgot how the players in the Gretzky era in the NHL were like, Wayne, the great one. Whoa, here, come on down, buddy. Why don't you just score on me? It's like, so I went off on Easton, and then it's like, I don't understand why we're still doing this, Robby. Help me out. Why are we still acting like the WNBA is not a sport? Again, I'll say what I said last year again. Magic and Larry Bird saved the NBA. It was such a bad product in the late 70s that the NBA finals were not on live television. They were on tape delay. Magic and Bird saved the league. Their rivalry, their NCAA championship game, Michigan State, Indiana State, remains the highest rated basketball game of all time and will always be that. Then they came in the league. They started a rivalry. Everything changed. David Stern. There's a lot of factors, but they saved the league. I promise you, not one damn dude in that league ever said, "That's our meal ticket." Magic, have yourself a layup, bro. What? No, it's sports. Caitlin Clark gets thrown to the ground sometimes and gets hit. She also talks crazy trash and slaps people herself. And we're acting like she needs to be treated with kid gloves. I don't understand the narrative. I don't get it. What are we missing? What am I missing, Robbie? Why are people still saying stupid crap like this? It's sports.
You weren't kidding. You are mad.
It's so freaking dumb. And then like Jared, since we're going to, bring up Jared, of course, his take is, the majority of players in the league, in the WNBA, would vote to get rid of her to have a worse situation because they hate her so much. I mean, Angel Reese might. Maybe,
I think she might.
Maybe two others? You're telling me the whole rest of the league? So if the rest of the league doesn't just get out of Caitlin's way and let her do whatever she wants and doesn't react to her trash talk and doesn't react to her putting 30 on them and beating them in a competitive professional sport, that means that they want her out of the league entirely? What are we talking about?
I don't get that part of it. I will say this, and I think we touched on this the other day. What we do see in, I think, a lot of professional sports is like the officials know who their stars are and do a good job for the most part of protecting those stars.
That's fair.
And they do not do a good job of that in the WNBA. And Stephanie White, I mean, that's why she's getting as mad as she's getting the other night, is because of that. Like, it's the officiating allowed that game the other day to get totally out of control. And I do feel like they've not gotten a great handle on that. And I have not seen the fine that Stephanie White is either gotten or is going to get. I imagine one is coming if it's not come to this point. But when she said everybody's getting better except the officials, and Caitlin Clark was over there just nodding her head, I was like, wow, I don't know if I've ever heard a coach actually say that.
That's totally fair. But let's go back to, let's go back to Michael Jordan, the meal ticket of the NBA. And my beloved Detroit Pistons beat the crap out of him. And you know what? Did Jordan get some star calls? Yeah. Also, did he get the crap beat out of him and all the Pistons get ejected every game? No. And when the Pistons, when Bill Laimbeer, took shot after shot at Larry Bird and all those guys, did he get thrown out? No. Also, when Robert Parrish just double punched him in the face, it was like, I guess that's a foul. A different time and all that, fine. But again, we act like everyone should be just so, thank you, Caitlin. Like, you just do whatever you want to do. Nothing that has happened, by the way, has even gotten her hurt. She hurt her calf that had nothing to do with a hit. I still think that the hit she took the other day, it was ejectable, but we're acting like it was some kind of crazy, insane hit. No, it was not. Phil says, calm down, Joe. Caitlin's the entire league. Okay. Should the other professional basketball players in the league not try to beat her? Do you watch her and the trash she talks? I love it. I love everything she does. And by the way, you mentioned her nodding at what Stephanie White said, but I've never heard her cry about this one time.
No.
Not one damn time. It is pro sports. And they are competitors, and it's a constant back and forth if you watch it. And so, yeah, if you're on the other team, you want to beat her. You want to shut her up. You want to prove her wrong. What is wrong with that?
No, I don't think anything's wrong with that. I don't have any problem with any of that stuff. I look at it, and I do think better officiating has got to get, and we've talked about this not just with the WNBA, but sometimes if you don't get a hold on some of these things, you get what happens the other day where it just gets totally out of control and you've got a borderline brawl at the end of the game out there.
Yeah, the refs have to be better. Again, this text says she's essentially getting persecuted by the league that she's made popular. Really? Because here and there she gets bumped. Watch sports. Somehow this is not sports. Everything else is sports. This is not sports.
Indy Ben says Joe just hates all things Indiana. Straight facts.
Look, man, if the Indiana Fever are on, I will probably be watching. I love Caitlin. I think she's amazing. And so, again, I get the idea that, people should appreciate her, and that's fine. I'm sure a lot of people do. But you're asking people to not be competitors, and I don't see that being asked of anybody else in any other league.
615-737-1025. That lived up to the billing. Rexrode's mad about it. And there's some thoughts coming in on the text line that are going to continue to make him mad. We'll be joined by Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports coming up next. Get his thoughts on all things Titans in the NFL. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Final hour, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Thursday morning. And we head to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in our friend Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports. Charles, good morning. How are you?
Heard you guys had the General, John McClain, on today.
We did.
Fellow Houstonian. Good to have all the Houston superpowers on in one day.
A lot of Houston talk. A lot of Houston high-level NFL people on the program here today.
I heard Joe's rant, Caitlin Clark rant. I like that. It was enjoyable.
He was very fired up. Still is.
I mean, I could go on and on with some of these comments I'm getting from these idiots, but I guess we should probably switch topics.
You know what? I will say this. Dawn has never watched a second of the WNBA in her entire life. Like, she knows nothing about the league. And yet yesterday at one point, we're like sitting there, and she says to me out of nowhere, she's like, "Hey, did you see that fight in the WNBA with Caitlin Clark?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, they've made it!" I'm like, "This is it.
This is it.
They crossed it.
Dawn,
they finally made it." Like,
Dawn's on
out
board.
of nowhere, a person who never watches the WNBA is asking me about this.
That's pretty awesome.
This fight. Yeah, it was pretty great. I mean, look, man, we grew up in the era of Jordan, but like, I think people forget that the Bulls went out and got Charles Oakley to protect him. Like, they're like, all right, we need some big bang, muscle, and we need to protect Charles. We need to protect Michael Jordan, and that's what I think. That's what the Fever need. They need to, whether it's Sophie Cunningham or whoever. But
she finally did. She did get her shot in at the end. But I agree that initial shot, someone needs to then push her right away, right? I mean, they're
right. Yeah.
Yeah. No, we talked about this last year. Like, someone's on the Fever needs to also come to her defense.
Yeah. They need to force her. Yeah, absolutely. They need somebody that's out there to protect. I mean, Gretzky had it, I think all the GOATs at some point had somebody to step in and, stand on business. And yeah, I was down for it. I'm like, all right. I'm like, I like this. Like, I love this storyline. I love the villains and the whole Magic and Bird sort of setup that they got going on with her and Angel Reese. And I think it's good for the league. I really do. She's the one I'll never forget. Like, I don't watch women's basketball, but I still remember her second to last tournament. I was flipping through channels, and it was during the women's tournament, and I literally stopped for like 5 seconds, and she hit like a logo three. And I'm like, who is this playing for Iowa? And then I sat and watched the rest of the game. And I remember I was texting with Michael Smith. I'm like, hey, man, you need to turn this on, because there's this girl playing for Iowa who is like doing some Steph Curry stuff. And from then on, I was like, anytime she was on, I was watching. So yeah, I mean, she's a lot of fun to watch. But yeah, I don't think you lay off her. I think you go at her and be a competitive league, be real, and
be a pro athlete.
Yeah, and let the team clean it up. Let the organization clean it up. Find somebody to protect her the way that Jordan got protected by a teammate and Gretzky got protected by teammates, and that's just how it works. But yeah, I love the origin story of how this all kind of began and where it's going.
So Charles, the Buss family out in Los Angeles has sold the majority of the ownership of the Lakers to Mark Walter, and the valuation there is right around $10 billion. So that is obviously a massive amount of money. It's the highest ever for a U.S. professional sports franchise. So what do you make of that, and how could that affect the NFL and some potential future sales that way?
It's a huge win for the NFL. I mean, that's the first thing I thought. And like, if you go back, I think it was August the 24th, for every August, Forbes comes out with their valuations of sports franchises. And I think the Lakers were just over $7 billion last August. So if you extrapolate it, you go from 7 to 10 in a year, we've seen obviously, the Mavericks, seen other franchises sell. You kind of know where that league's going. That absolutely influences what I think, the valuation of NFL franchises. And I think, if you look at the Cowboys, I think last August were valued at $10.1 billion, I want to say, off the top of my head. Yeah, they're going to be like 14 in August. They're going to be like a $14 billion franchise come August. Like if you're Jerry Jones, you're sitting there going, I don't even have to do anything. All I got to do is, keep building the infrastructure out and my organization. I don't have to win Super Bowls like year after year. I'm picking up billions and billions of dollars in value just because of where sports franchises are going. And it's no longer the NFL lifting everybody, which is what it was. I mean, the NFL was sort of, tugging and pulling everybody along behind it. But now with where the NBA is going, I think, largely due to because the new TV rights contract has really pushed values higher for NBA teams. But that was a huge win for the NFL. That was the first thing I thought was, man, every NFL franchise got to be psyched right now, because even the low end of the scale, you probably just picked up $1 billion on what, your franchise is ultimately worth. So, massive. I was stunned when I saw that number. I'm like, oh my God, there's just so few, there's so few cornerstone franchises that ever come available for sale. And, after seeing what the Celtics went for, and I give it to Magic too, because I think when the Celtics sold, Magic was like, the Lakers are probably a $10 billion team. And I thought at that time, like, he's crazy. Like, that's nuts to even think that, an NBA team that, I think at this stage, like you look at the Cowboys, the thing that's crazy about it, if you've ever been to their Frisco facility, it's nuts. It's completely insane what Jerry built in terms of the practice facility, the entire like retail space around it, the indoor high school, like the practice facility that seats like thousands and thousands of people and hosts these high school playoff games. And it's like nothing I've ever seen before. And you can see how Jerry Jones has sat there and said, okay, well, how can I continue to amp up the financial cost of what this franchise is really worth. He's kind of built like an empire in Frisco, Texas. Like, real estate values up there, like through the roof. I'll say this for Jerry Jones, man. Whatever he can't do on the field, he has completely figured out everything off the field. And when he goes, I mean, he'll be somebody that will have affected the financial bottom lines of the NFL for, decades to come.
So Charles, in the NBA, NFL, continuing, we got a lot of basketball adjacent stuff today. Desmond, and obviously, different deal, but you had an interesting idea for a piece. Desmond Bain traded for four first rounders. Orlando. I love that, by the way, for Orlando. I know some people think that's not a good. I think it's actually a really good move for them. I think people don't realize how good Bain is. But anyway, 4 first round picks. You asked execs and coaches about in the NFL, any players that might be worth 4 first round picks, which in the NFL sounds incredibly lofty.
Yeah. I mean, it was interesting too, because it was I kind of was when the trade went down in my mind, I was thinking like, it's interesting. Like, would an NFL team ever trade for first for a guy? Because we've seen Trey Lance, RG3, those were, I think it was 3 first rounders to really move up and get those guys in the draft. Obviously, Deshaun Watson, 3 first rounders plus from the Cleveland Browns. And so I just sent out like a wave of text, and you could tell that the Bain deal really sort of resonated in the NFL, because I was stunned how fast. I mean, it only took 2 days and I had 15 guys get back to me, and that doesn't usually happen. I mean, something really has to be on the minds of a lot of people for that many guys to respond in a 2-day period. But yeah, a lot of guys wanted to talk about it. It was interesting though, because I thought, I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, 4 first round picks, everybody's going to say Mahomes. So out of the 15 guys, 6 said no player. And I was stunned. I'm stunned that 6 people, and I mean, we're talking high level, whether personnel or coaching staffs, for 6 people to come back and go, there's not a player worth 4 consecutive first round picks, and just kind of listen to the sort of the I guess the theories that they had behind it. Just that, obviously it's not apples to apples with first round picks between the NBA and the NFL, but a lot of guys had thought this through, just sort of what the value of NBA picks are versus NFL picks, how NFL picks are used versus NBA picks. Like it was interesting. Like one executive made the point where he's like, you know, you can take 4 first-round picks. He's like, you can turn those into like 16 to 20 picks over a 3-year period if you're very smart and aggressive about moving back, depending on where those first-round picks fall for you. He's like, that doesn't happen in the NBA. And he said beyond that, he said even if it did, there's no value really in the second round of the NBA. Like everybody in the NFL has this thought process where they look at the NBA and they're like, it's useless after the first 15 picks. Like after that, maybe you get a rotational guy. Every once in a while, you'll catch a star, or like a Jokic in the second round, a superstar who you don't see coming. But for the most part, after the first 15 picks, you're just trying to get somebody that can be, you know, especially in that first round. Yeah, a rotational player, like maybe a starter. But almost everybody in the NFL, and it was interesting because the argument across, you know, the NFL platform was like, there were some guys who were like, yeah, there's the NBA second round is like, you know, 4th, 5th round in our league. I mean, there were other guys who were like, give me a break. It's like the 7th round in our league. Like you're just hoping to get somebody you can develop. You know, you're praying you can get somebody to develop between 31 and, you know, 60 in terms of those picks. But it was interesting. Like it was the customers you would think. I mean, it was like 8. I think 8 said Mahomes. You know, surprisingly, Lamar Jackson I think only got 3 votes. Burrow, I think, got 3 votes. Jaden Daniels got 2 votes. It was all the quarterbacks. No non-quarterback position got any votes in terms of giving up picks. And then somebody actually made, it was a fun little, I included it in the story, even though it wasn't something that I had, you know, specifically asked, but someone was like, you know, you're thinking about it wrong. What about, like, I would give up 4 first-round picks for, like, Howie Roseman. He's like, what about just people in the NFL? Like, what about Andy Reid? Like, how many first-round picks would you give up for Andy Reid? How many first-round picks would you give up for Kevin O'Connell? Which I thought was really interesting in terms of, you know, just thinking about, like, what to Howie Roseman really be worth if the Eagles were like, hey, you know what? Yeah, we'll trade Howie Roseman for picks. How many picks would you give up for him? I thought that was kind of a fun sort of thought experiment to go through. So
4 for Andy Reid, but not, I mean, I'd give up 4 for Patrick Mahomes. I'd give up 4 for Andy Reid with Patrick Mahomes.
See, that was the thing. The people who didn't vote for Mahomes, the 6, I mean, a very often, like, people were basically like, look, you're not getting Reid with him. It's always dangerous to go and get a guy. And, you know, some people are like, hey, look, okay, if it's 25-year-old Patrick Mahomes versus 30-year-old Patrick Mahomes, plus you're getting, you know, he's due a contract adjustment, which everybody thinks is going to be like $65 million a season, unless, you know, basically unless Mahomes is like, I don't need that, you know, unless Mahomes does what he did before, which, you know, and taking the 10-year extension that he did is the Tom Brady route and saying, I don't need to be the highest paid player in the NFL. But it's just a lot that comes along, I think, with Mahomes. And then I do think, you know, it's especially veterans, you have these 2 trades that happen. You have Deshaun Watson on one end, where it's just absolute utter disaster. And we can, if you move the off-field stuff to the side, none of us thought football-wise this is what this guy would ever be. None of us thought he would be, like, basically unusable as a football player, which was ultimately what he became in Cleveland. So that's one end of the spectrum. And the other end of the spectrum is, you know, Matthew Stafford. Like, the Rams thought, okay, we're a quarterback away, and they were actually right. But there's a lot of, you know, some critics in the NFL, they're like, the statement of we're X player away from a Super Bowl, they're like, that is just that's such a dangerous thought in your mind to think you're 1 player away from the Super Bowl, even if it's a quarterback or whoever else, because that rarely works out. If you go after, you know, that kind of a player, it typically becomes a total failure. But there, you know, you kind of have precedent on both ends in terms of going and getting a veteran quarterback who's a star, who has the ability to be an all-pro level player. You know, Watson was an abject failure, and Stafford, I think, at least for what it produced for the Rams, and I would say even in the ensuing years, they've still been a good competitive team. I would say that, you know, Stafford is obviously that success story.
So Charles Jair Alexander signing with Baltimore, reuniting with Lamar Jackson, and we'll see how often he's able to be on the field, which has not been very often over the past few years here. But what do you make of what that does for Baltimore? And I guess the follow-up question to that is, if not this year for Baltimore or Buffalo, when? as it relates to finally punching down the door and getting to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that was a huge addition, for them. I mean, what's crazy to me is like when you look at, you look at their secondary now, and again, it's like you said, is Alexander going to be healthy? If he's healthy, so let's just play that game. If he's healthy, their secondary. I mean, Marlon Humphrey, Alexander, Malachi Starks, Kyle Hamilton, Nate Wiggins. I mean, their secondary is pretty loaded. The like defensively, I think this is a really great signing for them. And then, I think offensively, to me, that's my favorite. It's got to be Baltimore. I feel like this year. I think the wide receiver room is probably now a little underrated because, I think they got Rashad Bateman. And again, that's another guy if he's healthy, but they got Rashad Bateman to the point where, especially from a touchdown scoring perspective, was a very big piece for them. And I think they finally feel like, they signed him an extension this offseason. They feel like that clicked into place. Zay Flowers, again, healthy if he's in the lineup and healthy. And DeAndre Hopkins it's a good, solid, wide receiving core, especially when you consider that, the tight ends, they expect Isaiah Likely, and I think he has the talent for this. I think they feel like, okay, this is going to be his big leap year. Finally, he's going to, get to the point where he could be a Pro Bowl level player. But it's when I went through there last year, and we talked about this on a recent show, the question for the Ravens was like, how are we going to cut up the pie? There's so many guys. It hasn't changed. It's the same deal this year. We talked about in the Derrick Henry conversation before. But yeah, they're loaded to bear to me. I think this is it. This is as good as I think this lineup has been. It's as good as in terms of like getting guys in their prime, producing, putting numbers out and being on the field. It's as good as the franchise has sort of been positioned with Lamar Jackson. And yeah, I don't know where they're in terms of like the sports books. I don't know if they're whether or not they're the odds-on favorite, but they got to be pretty dang close. Because to me, this is they're as good as any team in the NFL at this point from a talent standpoint. And then I think obviously like coaching, I'm a big John Harbaugh fan in terms of him being able to pull things together.
Well, speaking of the Harbaughs, we also talked a little bit today, Charles, about the other Harbaugh, the slightly more
the one that's on the spectrum.
Well, yeah, the one that's just he's out there a little bit at times. The other Harbaugh, but a very good coach, and I still believe Justin Herbert is a guy who is good enough to lead a team to a championship. Like, what's the feeling on Harbaugh right now? I mean, clearly there was some immediate gains there, but also it's not easy in the AFC to get to the top shelf. Like, where do you think they are?
Yeah, in the AFC West it's not getting any easier. Other than the Raiders, everybody you're dealing with in the AFC West now kind of feels like the arrows. The Chiefs are what they are, but now it feels like the Broncos are, competent now. They have the compass pointed in the right direction. Like, look, I'll say this: like, I think Harbaugh this past season, maybe the only position where I felt like they didn't take a step forward in terms of where they wanted to go. I think they wanted to have more of an impact on the tight end position, but adding Najee Harris, they drafted Omari and Hampton. I think they have the running back depth and youth sort of where they want it now. Is Herbert going to be healthy? I think that's a big question from start to finish. McConkey, I don't think a lot of people really truly believed he could be a number one. We'll see this year. I still think there's a little bit of question because of his size. It's like, let's see if this guy holds up. But just from a production standpoint, clearly he proved last year as a rookie that he's got the chops to be a number one as long as he can stay on the field and be healthy. They bring, Mike Williams back in. We'll see, Quentin Johnston. I would say that there are questions in the wide receiver room just in terms of, what's Johnston really ultimately going to be like, because he still has the hands problem and the confidence issues. And this is sort of the season of like, is he just going to be kind of a middle tier guy and like, maybe a 2/3, or is he going to, have the ground solidify under him? Trey Harris, they bring in, obviously they draft him out of Ole Miss. I like him a lot. Kind of weird offense that he comes out of. So let's see how that translates. But I think Harbaugh has the offense more geared toward, the balance that he ultimately wants it to have. I think defensively, I still think they're working toward, finding their identity defensively. Obviously, Joey Bosa goes out the door. I think they kind of wanted to do that last year because he's just never healthy and available. And I think even when he was on the field, he wasn't playing at a top level. So they're still transitioning. I don't know if they take a big stride forward this year. I think kind of what they were last year, it still feels like that's sort of where they've, settled in. I still think there's a lot to do from the standpoint of building the roster. So look, they're good. I think they've taken on Harbaugh's identity. But it's not like it's a team where you don't go down the lineup and have plenty of questions. Like Mekhi Becton, it's an interesting addition there, but Becton could be a really good, solid starter for you, or he could go back to the Jets Mekhi Becton where he's overweight and not producing and not on the field. That very easily could fall apart, and that would massively affect their offensive line.
Charles, last thing for you here. Philadelphia, as we know, reigning Super Bowl champions. If you had to pick it today on June the 19th, who is the second best team in the NFC? Is it Detroit, the Rams, Washington, or someone else?
I don't think it's Detroit. I think losing Frank Ragnow you have a brain drain. Obviously, losing two coordinators, I think, is really going to hurt them. It is going to affect them. Even though, you have in-house promotions who come in and both say, we're going to do the same thing we did last year. Of course, why change it? It's not, it's not broken. I'm like, yeah, that's probably not, if Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson were there, they would have changed some things. They would have, you keep growing and trying to augment what you're doing to make sure that people aren't prepared for what you do. So I'm not a big fan of when you promote in-house coordinators and their response is for the most part, we're just going to keep things the same. I think that's, a net negative for them. I think, losing Ragnow he was just, I know he's a center, but still, again, he was very much an anchor on that offensive line. You're trying to figure out if you got a rookie who can start at center for you. I think that affects their offensive line. I don't want to say hey, they had their shot. I still think Detroit's going to be, a good team, but I just don't see how now the offensive line, you get two starters gone from last season. And then the coordinators, I'm troubled by that. I think defensively they could be a heck of a lot better. So maybe that's the thing that to me is maybe I'm not measuring how much better they can be defensively. I just still think I'm telling you, the Rams are really good. They're a really, really good team. And I think, you bring in, from a wide receiving standpoint, I think Devontae Adams is still I think if anybody can get something out of him at this stage of his career, and kind of see a little flourish at the end, I think McVay can do that with Devontae Adams, especially playing next to Puka Nacua. I think the backfield depth is good. The offensive line has really come together. And then defensively, they just stacked up so many great, young pieces that are all ready to kind of step into the beginning of their prime. So yeah, I think the Rams, really have a chance to be that team that maybe we're looking at the end of the year. I think people forget how close they were to beating the Eagles. Yeah. That easily could have been your Super Bowl winner last year. But I'll ask you guys, do you think Stafford stays healthy? That's people look at Stafford's time since that Super Bowl. He's missed games, and his performance has been good when he's been on the field, but it certainly is not the level it was that year that they won the Super Bowl. He definitely, you're kind of okay, does he have a big season left in him? I wonder that too for Matt Stafford, and can he stay healthy?
Yeah, it's a great question. And there's, 37 years old. I know we see quarterbacks playing deeper and deeper. Not everybody's Tom Brady, though, so we'll see how that goes. Charles, great stuff as always. Really appreciate you taking time to be with us today, and we will talk to you soon, my friend.
All right, sounds good, guys. Have a good day.
Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports. our guest. Lots to react to there from Charles. We will do that next. Take your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 615-737-1025. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. I got some tickets to give away to the Preds Beer Festival at Bridgestone Arena coming up on Saturday, June the 28th. Be caller number 5, 615-737-1025. Caller 5 will win a pair of tickets to the Preds Beer Festival at Bridgestone Arena on Saturday, June the 28th. Robby and Rexrode brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all, live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Appreciate Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports for being with us in the last segment. I think the Rams have a chance to be very, very good in the NFC this year, so I would agree with him on that front. He says it's Baltimore's year. He feels like this is Baltimore, and this is kind of what they've been building towards here. It is kind of amazing if you think about the idea of Jair Alexander staying healthy. Their secondary is pretty ridiculous. I think Starks, like as soon as they drafted Starks, I was like, of course they did. I mean, he just screams Baltimore Ravens.
Yep.
Their secondary has a chance to be really darn good.
Yeah, and I agree. The receivers, and likely is a very exciting young player who I could absolutely see having that big leap this year. So I'm on board. I'm on board with the whole thing. I mean, the main thing with Baltimore that we need to have happen is Derrick Henry get 2,000 yards so Adam Sandler can make him a star. Like, is that like you'll get a cameo, or like I'm building a script around you if you get 2,000 yards? I have not seen I want specifics on this.
It's a great question. I mean, I feel like he could be pretty good in a movie. All it says, I believe, is just a movie role and a dinner that he will get. So what does that mean? Like, is he, I don't know, in Happy Gilmore 3, as he rounds like the 17th hole, is Derrick Henry just going to be standing there waiting to fight? I don't know.
When is part 2 coming out? This is summer?
It's this summer, yeah.
I'm pretty excited for that.
I am too.
Yeah, I mean, and also if
I'm going to keep my expectations low on that.
Yeah.
And hope to be surprised.
I agree. I mean, Sandler, frankly, has more stinkers than winners, but the winners are good. They're very, very good. By the way, the week of, I keep telling you people.
Haven't seen it yet.
You got to see the week of.
Got to see Office Space too.
God, I mean, I can't even like get my brain around.
Hey, Office Space is only an hour and a half long. Okay, I can probably do that.
Yes, do that. Yeah, like Michelle started watching it and like, oh, so what?
Yeah, Michelle didn't make it, I think, like 8 minutes.
That's embarrassing.
Yeah.
It's absolutely embarrassing. If Derrick Henry gets like 1,750 yards, is Adam Sandler going to say, sorry, Derrick, it's just not good enough. You're not, I mean, it's got to happen.
It says 2,000.
Right?
2,000 is the bar.
Yeah, I mean, he should have given him like a 1,500 as a bar. But I don't think he's going to get 2,000 yards this year. But I think Derrick Henry, you've got to show me Derrick Henry breaking down at this point for me to believe it, right?
Yeah.
And I think you're talking about rejuvenated, being on a team. I mean, you could argue that this team on paper, and he's been on the number 1 seed in the NFL before here in Nashville. He's been on a team that was up 10 points in the first half of an AFC championship game at Kansas City. But you could argue this is the best team on paper that he's going to be on after having one of his best seasons in an offense that's so liberating for him, especially compared to what he was having to deal with the last couple years here. So I expect nothing but greatness again from Derrick Henry this year.
It was interesting to hear Charles talk about, the sale of the Lakers and the $10 billion price tag that is reportedly worth in the neighborhood. I understand it's the Lakers. So you're talking about, an iconic franchise in our country. But it does make you think about like the NFL and what some of these franchises in the future will go for. He talked about apparently the valuation of the Cowboys at some point last year was like $10.1 billion. Not every NFL franchise is the Cowboys, so I understand that. But the franchise valuations here are just skyrocketing. And when I saw that number with the Lakers yesterday, I was like, good Lord. Majority of the Lakers, you can get $10 billion. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is. And again, when you see, and that's the Lakers, and it is different. It's a little bit of a different deal. But when you see these things in the NFL, and when it comes down to it, you see the tremendous benefits of owning an NFL team, any NFL team.
Yeah.
the valuation, how much money you are going to get out of having an NFL franchise, it makes me really more and more bothered about this begging for public money for your stadiums and the ticket prices and everything going to streaming. I actually have this as a topic for tomorrow, but I'm already like, these are things that we need to all keep in mind in the discussion when we talk about greed and these NFL owners. Like, you are going to do extremely well. Mike Brown, I know you're not quite a billionaire. You're like a 950 millionaire or whatever.
Tough times.
But you really are a billionaire, if you were to sell your franchise. So, pay Trey Hendrickson, like hire some scouts and don't make your coaches be scouts in the offseason, things like that. Cheap owners in the NFL. I mean, really in any pro sports, there's really no excuse for it. Like, you're still making money hand over fist. But in the NFL in particular, this push that we got to have this 18th game and so on and so forth. It really is nauseating when you start thinking about it.
Yeah, I just did a Google search. This is from 2024. Forbes putting it out there that their estimated team value of the Cincinnati Bengals is $4.1 billion. This is from August of 2024.
See, you are a billionaire, Mike Brown. Pay Trey.
$4.1 billion. Wonder what the Titans is. Maybe I'll try to find that out. But if the Bengals, I mean, if the Bengals are $4.1 billion, Titans got to be somewhere around there, right? You would think.
Yeah, I mean, I think that probably, when you talk about the lower end of the NFL, the Titans and Jags,
I've got it.
Texans are probably right in that range, right?
This was also calculated in August of 2024 by Forbes. $4.9 billion is the Tennessee Titans, which I guess ranks. They've got number 23, so I would assume number 23 in the NFL. $4.9 billion.
And CNBC put it at 6.01.
There you go.
So somewhere in between that range, I suppose.
So, Amy, you're doing okay. You're doing all right. I mean, look, the stadium happened. Most public money ever for a stadium. Again, you can delve in on that, and there is a lot that's being taken out of tourism, which is good. But still, you got a pretty sweet freaking deal. So there should never, ever be an excuse about investing in something to help this franchise win, to help people in Nashville have a better time.
The Detroit Lions, a lowly $4.15 billion, number 31 in the NFL.
Is that right?
That's what it says.
That's amazing. Like, just when I think about the poor millions of people who are about to be terribly disappointed this year, who follow that team with a passion, because Charles was not strong enough. I mean, their window is closed. They blew it.
Jeez.
Oh, come on.
I mean, you don't think they're going to be good this year?
Yeah, they're going to go like 10-7. They'll be good. They'll probably make the playoffs. A mighty team that will not yield. You don't lose those two coordinators. And you just, like Jared Goff has had an incredible run here. He's not gonna be an MVP level QB.
Cowboys $10.1 billion. Do you know the number 2 valued franchise in the NFL? If you had to take a guess.
I mean, I would immediately go to Steelers.
It is the LA Rams, $7.6 billion.
Interesting. Where are the Steelers on that list?
Well, they're not in the top 5. I'm still scrolling through. This is one of those like sliding scale ones that you have to keep scrolling through. They're not in the top 15. I'm still scrolling through. Number 17 on the list, the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Okay.
$5.3 billion.
It's interesting. So, I mean, there's so many factors in here, but I assume we're also market has to be
you would think so,
a big part of this.
Yeah, land,
right?
market.
Both the New York teams are in the top 5.
Yeah, all where you are and all that value of your stadium, I think probably, right?
Not competence within organization.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the list would look a little different.
The Patriots are number 3. I mean, Vrabel, spare no expense out there. You got all the money in the world to deal with.
That's right. So next time you go to a Celtics game, you can go ahead and clap, Mike Vrabel.
615-737-1025.
Probably not.
Our phone number, 615-737-1025. I got a couple rapid fire items to get into coming up next. We will do that. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, the game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5-106.3 The Game. Taking your thought on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Joe, I'm giving myself some homework tonight. We'll see if I get to it or not because the NBA Finals is on, so this could be more difficult than I anticipated. I'm going to try to do Office Space tonight at some point today. I'm going to try to get Office Space done.
I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
I'll come back with a report tomorrow.
Okay. That sounds great.
Apparently, you can find it on Amazon Prime and rent it for like $3.79.
It's well worth it. You truly will not be disappointed. Like there's probably 5 or 6 lines in that movie.
Oh, they're just classic.
Yeah, I mean, you will not be disappointed. I mean, again, it's not an Academy Award winner, but yeah, there's enough good stuff. You'll be glad you saw it.
Yeah, you referenced.
I'm still mad at Michelle now that we brought it up that she stopped watching it after 5 minutes.
Yeah, she said it sucked.
There's references all the time here. We use it all the time. Someone's go Office Space on the printer or copier, that kind of stuff. Stapler. You have my stapler. There's plenty of. They just stand the test of time.
Absolutely. No, it's if
the
you
Bobs,
are listening, hell yes.
I'm gonna check it out today.
What would you say you do here? Yeah, I mean,
Bob,
if you're listening and you don't know what we're talking about, you should join Robby in
group project
in watching that. Now, I'm probably going to have to take this to tomorrow because I just keep going back and forth with people. But I want to again read this tweet.
Okay.
Because Jared on the YouTube chat said Easton was 100% right. So again, he said these WNBA players might be the biggest morons because they pushed her. She's your walking, talking meal ticket. She's the Messiah of your sport. You have to be an astonishing idiot. He said at least the hockey players who played in the Gretzky era knew where their bread was buttered. So that's what Jared said was 100% correct. I'm like, really? So that's what happened in the NHL when Gretzky played? And then he said, well, I didn't say that was right. I said, well, how is it 100% correct if that's not correct? So please help me out, Robby. When Wayne Gretzky played hockey, did people get out of his way and let him go do whatever he want, not try to check him?
They did not. I do recall, and I can't remember who said it. There is a quote from somebody who played in that era, and I'll have to go find it, that has, for some reason, come up in this discussion over the last couple of weeks about how they basically were like, yeah, we knew that guy was making our whole league money, so maybe if there was an opportunity to hit him in an area where he was vulnerable, maybe you didn't take that opportunity or something like that. Like, okay. I have to go find it and see exactly who that was. But I have seen that come up over the last couple of weeks.
Okay. Well, I promise you that I can find some checks of Wayne Gretzky. I mean, I saw some in live action in my life.
Oh, yeah.
That would go miles beyond anything Caitlin Clark has ever encountered in the freaking WNBA. So, I mean, seriously. You guys want to keep debating this? We can keep debating this. I got, I'm being told, this is all about politics on the, on the text line. So, we can just continue this all summer if you want.
The Predators have made a move. They bring in Eric Haula yesterday in exchange for Jeremy Hansel and a 4th-round pick. Joe, we talked about that to begin the show. If you missed it, you can go check it out, Robby and Rexrode, wherever you get your podcast. But your very quick synopsis on the Eric Haula move by the Nashville Predators.
Make way for the parade, people. Where exactly is the parade route next year? Where and when? I need to know the date.
Will it start on Broadway or will it finish on Broadway?
That's always the question, right?
Yeah.
You can debate either way. You could do both.
You could.
You could wind your way
back.
And loop on back if you could. Yeah, I don't think it's like a reason to be upset, but it's a little bit of a head scratcher.
I would agree.
34 years old. He brings some sandpaper. He brings some annoyance to the opponent, so I like that. But I don't really think there's much of an ad here. The cost is whatever, but I obviously, and you said this earlier in the show, there's a whole picture that at some point we'll have, and it'll potentially make this make more sense.
We'll see.
But I mean, I still like him in the lineup is
Yeah, it doesn't move the needle a whole lot on that discussion. Joe, some observations you want to get to from Tennessee basketball about a new era with Rick Barnes and company. We talked about a huge recruit that they have landed that will be playing for Tennessee next season, and apparently already turning heads at practice here.
Yeah, Nate Ament. I am saying that right?
I believe you're correct.
Apparently, Mike Wilson, Ryan Schumpert, two of our friends of the show and friends in general who were there at the open session, and I've seen some video too, and he looks like the real deal. I mean, when you really think about everything they have, and obviously point guard is such a big deal. Freshmen coming in, and they're going to have to – they have Jacoby Gillespie, obviously. It's going to be different, and he can shoot the cover off the ball. But you think about Jalen Carey coming in. You think about JP Estrella getting healthy. You still have Okpara. You still have Cade Phillips. If Ament is, and again, he is the most celebrated recruit in program history, if he's going to actually be a bucket like it looks like he might be, I tell you what, man, the Rick Barnes, it's like after every year, I'm like, well, that was the team that I had a chance to do something with. Well, that was the team that he had. This might be a pretty special team. I'm just saying. I know that it's June 19th and, college basketball is not top of mind for people, but that session this week and some of the accounts made me think he might have a special team next year.
Doesn't look like Zakai Ziegler is going to be a part of it.
No, he did appeal.
He did.
But I'm not liking his chances.
That's going to do it for us today here on the program. Hope everybody has a wonderful rest of their Thursday. We'll be back 6 a.m. tomorrow. Jason Big Joe up next. You're listening to 102.5, 106.3 The Game.